Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good day to you all, wherever you are in the world. It is now time to go live for the real race, Super Trofeo Esports Season 5, Qualification Race number 4 of the European Championship, and we are here at the wonderful, the spectacular, the glorious Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. For your viewing pleasure this evening, myself, Paul Jeffrey, will be in the virtual commentary box, and I am delighted to once again welcome back my good friend and fellow commentator, Mr. Chaz Draycott.
Hello, Paul. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another fantastic installment of this event here this evening. Really looking forward to getting this underway at one of what I think is Europe's finest circuits, Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. This place has a bit of everything. It's a huge challenge in any sort of car, especially in GT cars where brake bias and weight transfer is oh so important. So I think this is going to be a real good showdown. Of course, Paul, with this being the last of these 4 races that we've had in this format, I think this is going to be super exciting because the drivers are right up against it now and it really is crunch time.
Yeah, it really is. It's 24 drivers, all racing for their opportunity to get to the live on-site grand final, where they race for the money cannot buy prize of an opportunity to race for the Automobili Lamborghini esports team to become a professional works Lamborghini driver in a virtual racing space. An incredible prize, an incredible competition, and Chaz, I dare say, I'm putting words into your mouth, old boy, but I dare say that you'll agree with me that the competition has been so tight up to this point, it really could be absolutely anybody's race to win or conversely lose this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even when we've compared the sort of seeding numbers of the cars when they've qualified and put their lap times in, comparing them to the results on the night, you never really know who's going to be up there and who's going to get those top 4 spots. We've seen a mixture as well of drivers taking it easy once they've made it into those top 4 spots, and others, partway through the race, pushing on like mad to try and gain 3rd or even 2nd position and making mistakes and putting themselves out of that spot. So the pressure's definitely been on before now, but for these 24 that have made it through here this evening, I think that, yeah, this is possibly the highest pressure part of the season here now because there's no other chance to qualify beyond this race tonight. So they've got to get it done. And it's so savage. I've commentated on it before and mentioned that it's very similar to karting, where in karting you either win or you don't. And that's it. And it's like that here with just 4 spaces, 20 drivers behind. It's going to be so mighty tough tonight to get through.
It really is. I mean, talking about toughness, last time out, winning margin, half a second.
Yeah.
Did a little bit of looking before we came on air. The largest margin of victory that we've had this season was round 1 in Imola. I'm going to consult my paperwork next to me to give you the exact number. A massive figure of 3.485 seconds is the biggest margin. 3.5 seconds. Luca Lazio over Michael Romagnoli. 3.5 seconds. That's 1, 2, 3.5. That much in a 1 hour race.
Well, that's been the theme of it, really, hasn't it? Is that they are long races, these hour-long races, and there's no pit stop or anything to break it up in the middle either. It is just a straight sprint. The cars will go from lights to flag with no adjustment, no changes, nothing. But the fact that it will only be a couple of seconds over that long in these machines, there is still a bit of a strategy element to it as well. You have to think about the tyres, look after the car over the course of the race. You can't just kick its head in everywhere and expect it to behave for you at the end of the race. So yeah, it's a great format for this because it really tests the mettle of the drivers as well, because they have to stay focused throughout that whole hour.
Yep, it's been a brilliant series so far. Of course, as we say, this is the final qualification round before we get to the on-site grand finale. And of course, with an event like this, it wouldn't be possible without our partners and sponsors, of which we are delighted to have Mosa with us for this year. We've spoken ad nauseum about Mosa, the great products, the great range of products they've got, but I think we've got a quick advert before we get started to show you a little bit more about the kind of things that Mosa do.
Fantastic stuff, and as you can see there, a massive range of products from Mosa, very tough and well-built stuff as well. I've had the pleasure of using one of their direct drives on the sim rig that you see beside me here before, and it is really, really powerful stuff. I went straight to a 16 Newton meter one, and I absolutely loved the thing. But the thing is, Paul, you can feel when you've got a quality product like that at your hands as well, because you have to interact with it so much, and over the course of a race, an event, and whatever you use it for in your sim racing, it just gives you that confidence to push, doesn't it, with something that's as beefy and as well built as the wheels by Mosa.
Well, it's like everything, and again, I'm not paid to say any of this. This is just genuinely my opinion. We spend a lot of money as sim racers on hardware, software. I personally, at least, I'm always looking for immersion. I'm always looking to try and. I can't afford to go racing. I'm 6'5". I'm far too big to go racing, so I try and do my pretend rig in the background and make it as close as possible. And a quality product, you want something that's tough, that feels like it can be in a real race car. And again, I've used many different brands of stuff, and Mosa are absolutely up there at the very, very sort of the top echelon of what they are. They're fabulous stuff, and I'm a fan of Mosa. I don't have Mosa on my rig at this moment in time, but I've used it several times, and it's always impressed me. And what I really like is I've got a bit of an obsession with steering wheels, I must admit. They have some properly awesome rims, and a lot of variety and truck driving stuff as well for games that I'm probably not allowed to mention on a stream, but popular truck driving simulations, some might say.
Which are based in Europe.
Yes, and America.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. I don't play that one. But no, I commentate on truck racing outside of the esports world, and when I see there's a truck wheel available, it's a very niche corner of the market, but they cover a bit of everything. You've got classic racing wheels, you've got very modern day round wheels, even formula wheels that are just sometimes ridiculous shapes. They look like they come out of a spaceship or something. But then you get your truck wheels as well. It's so cool to have all of that, and yeah, obviously Mosa have a brilliant format for all of their products and the way it all works together. Speaking of formats, though, we of course have quite the format for this competition here in the Real Race Lamborghini Super Trofeo Esports, and we've got David Sinitzer on hand to clarify just how this format works before we get our final race of this qualifying stage underway.
The Real Race Super Trofeo Esports is here for its 5th edition. Open to drivers from Europe, NALA region and APAC region, the Real Race Super Trofeo Esports promises an exciting and unforgettable show. In Europe, drivers will qualify at 4 different tracks: Imola, Red Bull Ring, Spa and Barcelona. The top drivers from each session will move on to the qualification races together with the wildcards. European drivers who finish in the top 4 during the qualification races will compete in the regional final at the famous Jerez de la Frontera circuit. In North America, Austin qualification begins at Watkins Glen on September 25th and September 27th, a battles for the APAC region. In both of these regions, the top 24 drivers from qualification will progress directly to their own respective online qualification and finals races. The NALA final will be on Sunday, October 13th, and 3 days later, on Wednesday, the 15th, will be the APAC final. European drivers will compete for the chance to win the overall championship and earn a spot in the Automobile Lamborghini Esports team. This final opportunity is open exclusively to European drivers at the Lamborghini World Finals in Jerez de la Frontera. Can't wait to see you guys on track.
Outstanding stuff that was, of course. David Sinitzer, our champion at Lamborghini, and very much one of the flag bearers of the team in 2023 and 2024. Now, of course, a team is made up of multiple parts, and we have several drivers for the Automobile Lamborghini Esports team. And one such driver, Dario Yamullo, won the biggest prize of all. Of course, he won the opportunity to represent the squad, and he's very kindly taken a few moments out of his day to give us a guided tour of the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. So, folk at home, watch closely as we have one of the best tell you how to get round this beautiful Spanish venue in Assetto Corsa Competizione.
So hello everyone, and here we are in a dark Barcelona for a tutorial lap in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. And we're going to turn 1, we want to break into the outside curb in order to maximize the space for the entry corner. Real aggressive in the turn 1 and turn 2 on curbs. Turn 3 is quite tricky because we don't have that much downforce with this car, but yeah, we try to maximize what we have. And for turn 4, again, we want to break into the curb in order to maximize the space. We want to be quite tight into the inside curb. Really tricky traction there. We have to be quite patient with throttle. Turn 5 is tricky because it's a downhill braking, and we want to be really tight on the inside curb. Again, really smooth on throttle, and the exit is very important there. Turn 6 is pretty much flat out, and turn 7, 8 it's a tricky chicane. Really fast into the entry, be on the gas as soon as possible in order to have a great exit. Turn 9 it's a blind right-hander. We want to avoid the inside curb, maximize the space in the exit, and going into turn 10, really tricky braking there and pretty hard. First gear, be very tight into the inside curb, nice and smooth on throttle. And then there is this corner that we want to be really tight into the inside curb again, really patient on throttle. And for the last 3 corners, really fast into this one. And for the last chicane, we want to break in quite into the middle track, be really tight in the inside curb, maximize the speed that we have. The last corner is pretty much flat out, and yeah, this is the lap in the Barcelona in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, and can't wait to see some battle here.
Thank you very much, Dario Yamulo. Fantastic lap there. And did we forget to mention that the racing's going to be at night? This is going to be mighty, mighty spicy around here at Circuit Barcelona, Catalunya, because, Paul, it's difficult enough in the sunshine, but let alone at night, and we've got to try and pick out which car's which.
Exactly, and they've got to pick out where the corners are and their reference points, which is always a little bit of a challenge. With 23 other cars, fabulous stuff.
Absolutely, and these are the cars that will be on the grid today then. So Max Florenz, top of the qualification times. He's going to be driving car number 1 with Yanis Reinders and Andriy Pozniakov, the Ukrainian driver, in car number 3. Marcin Swidereka is a name that we've seen before as well. Same with Matteo Sinotti. There's a few drivers throughout the field that we've recognised from events before that keep coming back time and time again and showing us exactly what we've got in the amazing talent pool to try and make it into the team. Andrea Zanelotti is car number 6 in this bunch. We've also got Stefano Bonsignore. He's back once more as well. The 2 French drivers within the group there, Lucas Congretel and Arthur Romtard as well in car number 11, with Ivan Fornes, the Spanish driver, in there. Still a great turnout from the Italian drivers as well, Paul, as you can expect. But this field tonight, there's a lot of new names in here that we haven't had before the, this final race of the qualification stage.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a whole bunch of nations, 8 nationalities taking part today. Alessio Famolari for Italy, and then we have Yevken Seiko, number 14th quickest in the hot lap qualification. Finn Zimbel from Germany, and Lucas Savescu as well in 15 and 16. Then from Finland, Nico Kumpu will be back again to have another stab at that top 4 position. And then Emano Ragnoli in car number 18, another one of our Italian drivers. Gabriele Cesario is car number 19. Leonardo Grigis, a name you will recognise no doubt from previous races, 15th and 14th from his 2 races thus far. Martin Klasser in 21st. Bartosz Reitlicki, in car number 22. Danilo Magnani is the 23rd car, and then Federico Vigani, another one of our Italian drivers. First time that we've seen him take part. Makes 24 drivers, Chaz, 60 minutes of racing in the dark, and the only people that are going to come away from this one with a moderate level of smiling will be those in the top 4. Everybody else, their deal is done for the Super Trofeo Esports 2024.
I'm sure we'll probably be smiling at the end of it as well, because I think this is going to be a real belter of a race. It's certainly going to test my eyesight and how good this monitor is, and whether I can tell apart the cars. But yeah, we have a fantastic grid for this one. Very, very tight, very close throughout. And I'm excited to see what the lap times look like as well from qualifying and how they all form up on the grid. Because like we've said before, we get the entry list sent to us, cars 1 to 24, as you've just seen them there on your screen, everybody. But sometimes they don't always sit perfectly in line with those seeding numbers. You know, we've seen cars over number 20 before be right up there in the top 4 qualifying positions. So it may be that drivers work a little bit better when it comes to managing the race as opposed to just 1 lap pace as well. So that's why this format works though, isn't it, Paul? Because the drivers have to do a bit of everything to make it work and get through into the team, because obviously Lamborghini don't want to just pick anybody based on 1 lap pace. It's also about how you manage it over a long run as well.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, when they do the hot stint qualification, it's exactly that. It's a hot stint. So it's multiple laps that they've got to set their time. And that's what gets them into the top 24 to qualify. When it comes into the race, it's all about the hot lap in qualifying. It's all about the racing intelligence. You can see already from the qualification grid, Florenz was quickest in the hot stint, quickest in quali. But then Lucas Magnani in second position was 10th in the hot stint qualification, so he's come good when it is necessary in this race. And Chaz, it's an age-old thing that all commentators in every bit of racing, real or virtual around the world, have always said. It only matters on Sunday afternoon when you go racing. Granted, it's Sunday night time here in the UK, but no matter what's happened up to this point, it's about here and now, isn't it? Any mistake you make, you're out. You've got to deliver.
Absolutely, and another thing we always say in motorsport is that the result sheet doesn't always tell the full story of a race. You know, we could have one of these drivers sit in the top 3 positions throughout the whole hour, and then on the last lap have a mistake, and that be it, and that's the end of their competition. It's going to be the case here as well. You know, we are going to see a result at the end that may not tell the full story of this race, but it depends on, you know, when you are in those top 4 spots. You could be there all race long. If you're not there as you cross the start-finish line at the very end of the race, then I'm afraid what you've done before that doesn't really matter. Sure, it might get the attention of Lamborghini and the esports team itself. They may be able to sort of say, you know what, that person did really well, and they could always rely on them to fall back on them for whatever reason if they need to. It's certainly a good shop window for everybody to show themselves off in, but it doesn't really matter once you fall out of those top 4 spots. So I'm intrigued to see the approach from the drivers tonight, whether they do try and hang on to a top 4 spot or play it safe once they get in there. We'll have to wait and see, I suppose, because some drivers, we know, Paul, will get up into 4th, and that won't be enough for them. They'll want to still make further ground.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we've said, the pressure really is on the shoulders of all of these drivers. Last time around, less than 3 seconds covered that top 4. Less than 3 seconds. So 3.5 seconds down the road is the first person that doesn't make it through. That's how tight it is. You've got to get your elbows out. It's only a 60-minute race, and the level is incredibly high across the board. So this is going to be fascinating, Chaz. Cannot wait to see how this unfolds. In the dark as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see the exhaust glowing, hanging out the back of those 5.2 litre V10s. We'll see pops and bangs of all manners from the back of these machines. The lights reflecting very brightly off the incredibly shiny surface here at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Unfortunately, we are doing that god-awful chicane. But let's get this race underway, shall we, Paul? They're going to get up to certain speed, hold it, and then get cracking once they get near the start-finish line.
So then, folks, here we go. We started many moons ago at the Imola circuit. We went to Spa-Francorchamps, then we visited the Red Bull Ring, but here we are at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. Lamborghini, the real race. Super Trofeo Esports qualification race number 4, the final one of the year is go, and heading us down into T1. And the inside line is the green car of Max Florenz, fastest in pre-qualification, fastest in qualification, and he's the first driver to nose ahead of 2,400 cars. There's somebody running a little bit wide. I think that was Magnani. He's going to get the car back on the track, though, in 4th position, which is right on the bubble, but just behind is Pozdiakov, trying to buy into this one as well. And already, Shaz, we've got drama.
Yeah, I think Reinders is the car trying to battle with him now as well, and it looks like Bonsignore is the one that's gone through into 2nd position. Magnani, I think, has just got back past Reinders already as they go through turn 4. Hard on the brakes now into turn 5. As we saw from Yamulo earlier during that lap guide, turn 5 is one of the most difficult corners on the circuit because it's downhill. The car really doesn't behave itself, and there's a lot of camber there as well. Looked like a few drivers got drive-throughs at the start, but I think that was just down to maybe a slight discrepancy with the start procedure. It seems like their penalties have been cleared now, but it's Florenz, Bonsignore, Reinders and Magnani in those 4 important spots to begin with. Pozniakov and Swiderek are currently in 5th and 6th, ready to pick up the pieces. Zimbal going well as well, car 15 all the way up there in 7th position.
Yeah, that's just the ticket for Magnani. He'll be delighted about that one. Making up a place off his starting position. That's one more place away from one more place, comfort blanket, should I say, from being on that all-important bubble where Reinders currently finds himself. Pozdiakov will be very interested in getting involved as well as we swing back to Finn Zimbal. Car number 15, 15th quickest in the hot stint qualification session. But Finn doing a very good job as the German driver, up into 7th place and most certainly in the conversation. This is the first opportunity then to get the slipstream down the long start-finish straight into a good overtaking opportunity into T1. Does Zimbel have enough of a drag? No, he doesn't. Just shows his nose a little bit, just lets the car ahead know that there is somebody interested. And Leonardo Grigis is in pit lane, as is Seiko as well. So 2 cars, Chaz, failed to make it past the first lap, and we're down to 21.
Yeah, I think there was a few cars that came to strife in the middle of the pack. There's quite the hole punched between Zimbel and then Sinotti. There's also a 2-second gap from 12th to 13th. Klaassen and Raikkonen are quite far apart also. So I think 1 or 2 cars, maybe in that last sector where it's a little bit more stop-start, have had an issue there somewhere. I still refuse to believe that Finn Zimbel is a real name. It sounds like the main character out of a film about motorsport, doesn't he? It would be an absolute travesty if he doesn't get through, because it's the definite main character vibe coming from that car right now. Right on the back of Marcin Swiderek, though. Swiderek, who of course qualified 4th. That's what the car numbers mean, in case we haven't explained that properly before now. The car numbers are the order in which they qualified to get into this race. So the top 24 hot stint qualifiers made it through into this opportunity to race. And look at this, Zimbel going one way, then the other, trying to upset Swiderek. He's going to go round the outside into turn 10. Is he going to make it work? Because the thing is, there on the inside, you have to compromise your speed on the exit, and he has got it done before they go up through the right-hander. A little bit of contact there, but nothing too untoward. But I think we're going to see that move a few times tonight, you know, Paul. That is a really, really well set up manoeuvre. That fantastic job there by Zimbel, and he's through.
Yeah, fabulous stuff there from Finn Zimbel. Needs to push now, though, because a gap has developed while they've been fighting for number 3. Is managing to charge away up the road. So Finn Zimbel needs to unleash all the pace he possibly can in that 15. A great move, very committed from the German driver. 6th position is his reward. Swiderek, though, looks like he's struggling for pace a little bit. He's coming under pressure from Matteo Sinotti behind. Janis Reinders, by the way, in 4th position. Let's remember, guys and gals watching at home, 4th position is the last of those spots that will qualify you for the on-site final. Is in a very nice fight in Di Luca Magnani just ahead, and then Pozdimakov just behind. This one could go any which way, and as the car number 2, as Janis Reinders, you're as bad burnt or scolded really in this one, aren't you, Chaz? Do you attack and move up, but then you'll make yourself vulnerable from behind?
Yeah, it's one of the worst situations to be in as a driver, whether this comes down to a qualifying position or anywhere in a race, really. If you're the sort of pinball in the middle that's got a car right in front and a car right behind, the opposite of a Newton's cradle, really, it is not a good place to be. You're constantly watching your mirrors, worrying about what the car behind you is going to do, while also trying to focus and not be compromised by the car in front as well. So Janis Reinders is in a mighty tough spot now, because he's got to hold on to that position. He cannot sort of sit back and say, you know what, I'm going to let Pozniakov through here, and maybe he can open the door and get me past Magnani. You cannot take the risk and wait for that to happen. He needs to sit right behind Magnani and just hope that he can either get through and break away, or that Pozniakov falls off the back of these pair and Magnani holds a decent enough pace not to hold Reinders up, because well, I think Magnani's going to be a little bit shaken from that first corner, because there's going to be a lot of nerves involved with the fact that he's been off the circuit. So Reinders just needs to be a little bit patient here, although they've actually gained a decent bit of time over Pozniakov there in that final sector, about half a second the gap now.
And let's remember that Reinders, of course, qualified higher than the cars that he's racing around and in the company of at this moment in time. So he does have that sort of peace of mind in the back of his mind that he can get the job done. He has the pace. Congratal, that we're looking at now, down in 17th position. This is a good fight with Cesario in the number 19. Looks to the inside. This is the overtaking spot of choice. Not quite close enough, though, on that occasion for Lucas. Wisely drops back in again. He's going to follow through. So difficult through this section of the racetrack. The downforce, when you're following closely, it's taken away from the front end of the car. It wants to wash wide and understeer anyway, but Congratal doing a good job at this moment in time to apply all the pressure in the world, it has to be said, to Cesario ahead.
Yeah, downforce, of course, very important in these cars. They've not got those wings and splitters and diffusers for no reason, as he sends it up the inside into turn 5, but he's gone deep. And a lovely, lovely cutback, maybe a bit of contact on the exit. Now, Cesario does a great job there, actually, to see that coming, leave him room, then get the cutback and hold on to the position. But they've both gone deep now into the left-hander all of a sudden. really both trying hard here as they now go side by side up through turn 9. Very difficult place to go side by side. You have to be careful if you're Congretl there because you don't want to turn into the rear quarter of your rival. And look behind them, Savescu thinks, okay, I can make something of this as well. These guys right with each other. Savescu down the inside of the pair of them, opportunistic stuff. Lovely move down the inside there. You could see as well, Congretl says, yep, you know what, I'm going to give you the room. It was a little bit late from Savescu, sorry. Savescu, get it out, Chaz. But, wow, very feisty stuff now. One way, then the other. Really scrapping over every position here. But as I come back to, the downforce is very important in these cars. Dirty air is very apparent as well. You don't get a huge amount of slipstream in these cars, which is interesting. Considering the size of the wings, they're very similar to GT3 cars, not quite on the same level of pace. It's sort of its own specification between GT4s and GT3s. But it's mighty fast in a straight line, though. It's a lot more slippery, isn't it, than the GT3 car, Paul?
Absolutely. It is a kind of car that you need to be feel a little bit. It requires all of those faculties and a little bit more, it has to be said, as we saw from Dario Yamulo's on-board lap. And here's another opportunity now for Congretl to try and close back and make up for that lost position. Savescu a little bit aggressive on the curves, but Congretl runs very, very wide indeed. No problem on this occasion. You want to stay, though, within the confines of the track limits as much as possible. Otherwise, you'll be receiving the wrath of the in-game stewards. And Congretl looking one way and then the other. This is the chance. Launches the car to the inside. Will he get it stopped on his markers? Just about. And that is a position gained in the closest way you could wish to be. But side by side, in fact. So Congretl doesn't have it done yet. And there he does. 2 corners later. Gets the job done. This, though, Chaz, is a fight that's going to continue and does so.
Brilliant stuff, absolutely brilliant, really close. They've only made a tiny amount of contact here and there, but barely even a scratch on these Lamborghinis. Looks really, really good, doesn't it? Very, very enticing to watch. And all this time, just behind them, Savescu and Cesario want to pick this apart again. Cesario has not lost this pair, but he's certainly right in there, waiting in the wings. Although Congretl's had a very, very solid run through turns 11 and 12, up over the top of the hill now, down towards the chicane. And he's actually got a couple of car lengths now. He's going to be hoping for pressure from behind to take the attention away from him. There's actually a 5-second penalty for Cesario as well. He's been given 5 seconds to add on to the end of his race time. As we look back now at 4th place, Janis Reinders, a lot more, I was going to say daylight, a lot more darkness between himself and Pozniakov there, Paul. He's going to be feeling a little bit more comfortable now, surely.
Yeah, this one's starting to spread out a little bit. Max Florenz at the 1.5 seconds ready. And only 10 minutes on the clock, showing stamping some authority, it has to be said. And there is confirmation of that 5-second time penalty for the number 19 of Cesario. Down in 18th position for contact on lap 1 between himself and cars 14 and 19, which is the penalised vehicle. Looking, though, back to this fight for 3rd and 4th position, I say fight, it's more a high-speed game of chess at this moment in time. Janis Reinders just keeping the pressure on, not close enough to make an attack. But Chaz, this is intelligent driving, isn't it? He's not launching an attack. He's not throwing the car to the inside, filling the mirrors or anything like that one. They're trying to gap the cars behind to give themselves that wiggle room to then squabble a little bit further in the race. Worst thing you can do is fight amongst yourself, and then suddenly you're drawn back into that 5th, 6th, 7th position fight that you absolutely don't want to be anywhere near if you're these two drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Reinders following in Magnani's wheel tracks here says more than him trying to dive around and make moves. He's just showing him that he's there to stay. He knows that it benefits him sitting behind him. He's using the slipstream where he gets it, but at the same time, he's not forcing Magnani to defend and compromise the pair of them in terms of pace. This is really, really clever driving this by Reinders. He knows that he's the driver that's on the brink and at risk, and the cars behind are evenly spread out as well. There's less than a second between any of them when it comes to Pozniakov, Zimbol and Svidorek. They've then got a bit of a gap back to Sinotti, so those three will feel that they can lob the car forward a little bit more, lob meaning throw, at these top 4 drivers to try and just break into that sort of cut-off place. Florenz, Bonsignore, those two at the moment are going to be a lot more comfortable. Florenz has still got the fastest lap of the race after 6 laps being completed, and Bonsignore
well, he's 2 seconds or so off the race leader, and he's still a second ahead of Magnani as well. So he's going to be feeling all right at this stage. But it comes down to how they look after the tyres, Paul. We don't know if some of these drivers are going to be pushing a lot harder than the ones around them to keep up this pace, or whether some drivers are easily churning out these lap times. It's when it gets to the sort of later stages, the last 20 minutes of the race, I'd say, is where the tyres become more apparent in terms of how well they've been looked after.
Absolutely, and that's a very, very valid point. Of course, it's 10:18 p.m. in-game time in this particular race. The later into the night it gets, the cooler it becomes when you start wearing the tyres down, burning off the fuel, lightening the car up. The balance can significantly change from the car that you had underneath you at the start of the race, more to the point, the car that you've practiced in during the hot stint in qualification as well. Sometimes a lively car can play into the hands of a driver, sometimes you can plummet like a stone, and we've seen that this year, we've seen that in previous seasons as well. So a lot of this now, this middle stage of the race, is kind of preservation, it's kind of just waiting to see how the race comes to you, and that's also what we're looking for at Lamborghini, is a driver that's got the racing chops as well. It's all fair and well, Chaz, being rapid in a single lap or over a stint, but you also need to have the intelligence and the racecraft to manage a car over the course of a stint, because of course we tend to race traditionally in more endurance-focused championships where mechanical sympathy, in a virtual sense, is so very, very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a driver as well, you need to be able to keep your concentration and be able to put out laps for that long. You need to be able to turn on your ability when you are required to. You know, if you need to sit, much like Reinders is now, you know, if you need to sit behind the car in front, keep a cool, calm and collected head and just sit there when, you know, part of you as a racer, your natural instinct will say, overtake him, go on, dare you, do it, throw it down the inside, just brake a little bit later. You need to ignore that little devil on your shoulder and just think about the bigger picture. And that's what races like this do. It's not a 15-minute sprint where everybody's throwing elbows at one another. It is a longer race where you have to just take each lap as it comes and just think about that larger picture, like I say. We look back at Lucas Congretel. He's behind Ragnolini now, and he has made a lot of ground actually to catch up to him. There's 3 seconds ahead to Kumpu after that. Klaassen has a drive-through penalty also, so that's going to gain these guys a position, I'm sure. But Congretel's showing great pace and determination at the moment. He's got away from the drivers behind him. Although I say that, actually, Savescu and Cesario have both been in the pits, so maybe it's not all completely down to Congretel's pace, but we can still, you know, we can paint a good picture of him. He's in another battle at least, and Ragnolini is definitely not in a safe space right now, because with a gap ahead of them, Congretel's got nothing to lose here. He may as well throw everything at this.
Absolutely, and Ragnolini's looking a little bit ragged at this moment in time as well. A few times, rear cars, that long spin final corner. This is vulnerability time now for Ragnoli, sorry, with Congretel trying very hard indeed in the slipstream. Is it in a launch position? Yes, it is. The inside line telegraphed nice and early. Will he be given the racing room that he's earned? Yes, he will. Lucas Congretel gets the car stopped, keeps it on the racing line and does a lovely overtake. A couple of retirements at this moment in time. Klaassen is serving his drive-through penalty, as you can see. Savescu as well in the number 16 has had to go down pit lane. Here's some free advice to everybody that competes in these kind of championships. Even if you have a problem, a penalty, an accident, some damage, whatever, see it through to the end of the race. Leaving early is not a good look. See it through to the end of the race. Show that you have got the mental fortitude to complete your task at hand, because you never know who's watching and what opportunities that might present.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen it before, haven't we, where some drivers have had a slight inconvenience and they've quit on the spot, and we've brought it to light that that's not a good look. It's not what you want to see. You want to see drivers pushing until the very end of these races, regardless of what's happening. And it's not easy to keep a cool head, but that's part of it. So that's why these drivers are here. And at the end of the day, you often hear the phrase "dance like nobody's watching," but I always say, Paul, dance like everybody's watching, because all it takes is one important person or the right person to see something that you're doing to get an opportunity as a result of that. So yeah, these guys need to think about every single lap. The cameras can be on them from every angle here in esports. We don't have the logistical limitations that you would do of real-world broadcasting. We can have these these cameras and us commentators looking at every angle of every single car at any moment. And of course, we have replay files to look back on as well. So
Everything is assessed. Everything is scrutinised here. It's like footballers when they dive. You think, why? But drivers need to really be careful in all of these aspects of every single lap. And to be honest with you, I'm going to very quickly change the subject, but the darkness hasn't made it that difficult to identify the cars.
No, it's been quite surprising. I'll have to admit, I only found out it was dark when we saw Dario Yamulo's lap. I went,
Same.
That's made it a little bit more challenging this evening. But
I was going to say, sorry, I wish all you viewers at home could have heard the sharp intake of breath Paul and I both did when the warm up, when the hot lap came up. We both went, wait, what? But it's always good to be surprised. It keeps us on our toes, doesn't it, Paul?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I must say, ACC looks absolutely resplendent in these conditions. It's a fabulous, fabulous platform. I said, of course, the Competizione, and the guys and gals at AK Esports that put on these events as well do brilliant stuff to configure the files and the video and the graphics and the images on your screen just so perfectly. So beautiful stuff. Everybody involved in putting these events together do a fabulous, fabulous piece of work. We'll talk more about that at the end of the show, but let's get on to the meaty stuff of the racing. 42 minutes then are on the clock remaining, 10:23 p.m. in-game time. Max Florenz, a clean pair of heels have been shown, 1.5 seconds. Looking at the history of gaps in this series, that is night and day, pardon the pun, for Max Florenz at the front from Bonsignore in second. Magnani in that third position that we're looking at, and then here is Janos Reinders in fourth place, the last of the ones that will get the metaphorical golden ticket, and he's certainly not given up hope yet of trying to play away the bottom step of the podium from the car ahead.
Absolutely, and if you look at these pair of headlights coming towards you, this is Congretel, and I think, is that Familari in there with him? Or is that Kumpu? Has he already caught up to Kumpu and moved on? Congretel's having an absolute flyer at the moment. He now moves up into what I believe is 11th position. We'll see when he next triggers one of the timing beams. I'm pretty sure that is 11th place.
Wow.
So really on the move now is Lucas Congretel. We might be congratulating him at the end of this for some reason if he's got the most positions gained anyway, as he's now already on the back of Zanelotti. Is that the 06 car right in front of him? I think it is, isn't it? The orange and blue machine. It's incredible. He's just picking off places after places. This is just brilliant. And this is what we were talking about, isn't it, Paul? Is that it's not always necessarily the top 4 drivers on the night that are the most impressive. You do see drives through the order from other people in the grid that, again, the result sheet won't tell the story of this because it'll just show, you know, even if he finishes in somewhere like 7th or 8th position, that'll be overlooked because it's not one of the top 4 spots. So it's one of those things, I guess. But yeah, he's doing a great job either way.
Yeah, really superb performance. This is the first time that we've seen Lucas in the real race. Trofeo Esports. He's not taken part in any of the hot stint qualification sessions coming into this one, so this is the very first attempt at this competition in terms of qualifying and participating, and already showing a lot of promise indeed. Car number 8, he was 8th, of course, in the hot stint qualifying. Had a few dramas. He's all the way outside of the top 10 at this moment in time, but just winding back to what I said a few moments ago about never give up, never give in, never quit early. This is already going to be noticed, I am sure, by those that matter. It's certainly been noticed by Chaz and I that he's pushing hard, probably outside of the top 4, but he's absolutely giving everything he's got. Now he takes a look to the outside line. That's an unusual place into T1. Can't get it done in the braking, but he carries that outside line and the momentum with it. Very nicely done. Lucas Congretel moves up another position. Zanelotti is the victim this time. And that top 10, few more to go, Chaz. It's a big ask to get the top 4, but it's definitely been a race and debut that's going to stick in a few people's minds for Lucas Congretel.
Yeah, absolutely. He's put on a fantastic show so far. He's got a hell of a gap now to catch up to it with his countrymen, actually, in the number 11 machine. 13.5 seconds to go there. But, I mean, already he's gained a couple of car lengths over the likes of Zanelotti and Kumpu. But Zanelotti there put the car exactly where any of us lot would have done, and Congretel just found his way around the outside of him. We've seen a lot of that, though, recently on the outside of chicanes, setting yourself up for the second part of the corner. I mean, even on the exit of turn 10, we saw it earlier on in the race. I think it was Congretel that did that as well, actually. Put himself on the outside of this upcoming hairpin, gets the run because he uses the outside run and uses the momentum to get around the outside of the other car and then use it as the inside line for the next corner. Kumpu's just made a move down the inside, actually, on Zanelotti as well, and there is proof that it works both ways, because this time the car on the outside is the one that loses out. So yeah, brilliant racing by all these guys so far. They're really making the most of it, and it's not easy to do that at night either, because while you do think, it's still only in the sim, it's not real darkness, they're not real headlights, you still lose the peripheral vision, don't you, and the sort of idea of what's around you and how quickly it's moving. It really does affect how much of the race you see.
Yeah, precisely. And of course, racing in night conditions is not something that you see day in, day out. It doesn't happen on public servers. Leagues often, in sprint races at least, don't race in the evening, and certainly in a Super Trofeo car, in which we're racing the Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2, of course. They don't tend to do the big long-distance endurance races in this particular class of car. It's more the GT3, so this will be a little bit of a step into the unknown for a bunch of these drivers. We're looking at Finn Zimble, by the way, up in a 7th position, or 6th, depending on which timing screen you decide to look at. I do think it is 7th, though. Still racing with Marcin Swiderek for that 6th position. By the way, drive-through penalty for car number 9, Mania Kabir, for contact. I believe that was on lap 1 between himself and the 14. So that needs to be served in the next 3 laps for Mania. Hopefully he'll serve that one and get back out on the racetrack, but that's unfortunate for the number 9. That will certainly drop him out of contention for that. There we go, right on cue. It comes up on screen there. So our race control doing great work as well behind the scenes. Live stewards, of course, in the Real Race Super Trofeo Esports Series have their eyes on everything. There's nowhere to run and hide, both on television and in the stewards, Chaz.
Yeah, that's exactly what we were saying before, isn't it? There's eyes everywhere in these things, and we have so many replays. Effectively VAR, whatever that is, in the
I've never heard that racing term before.
Shh, move on quickly.
Yeah, damn right.
Max Lorenzo at the top of this is just disappearing. Well, actually, you know what? I'll eat my words very quickly there. Bonsignore's actually closed the gap down by about 0.2 of a second so far. It's Bonsignore moving away further from Magnani. He's still got Reinders for company, which may be affecting his pace if he still feels like he has to watch the mirrors a little bit for Janez just behind him. But then they have opened up more of a gap now over the likes of Pozniakov and then this pair, Swiderek and Zimble. As we said before, Zimble, very much main character vibes coming from him right now, but he's not quite making the run through that we would have expected. He's just sort of sat behind Swiderek this whole time. But again, putting pressure on, keeping him at least in his window of attention. It's just not easy to stay there, as you can see there. All it takes is one mistake like that, a little bit hot into turn 5, one of the real pinch points on the circuit. All of a sudden you've lost 2 or 3 car lengths, and that could be the difference between getting slipstream down that long start-finish straight and getting none at all.
And this is the classic racing issue, Chaz, isn't it? We've seen that Zimble has got plenty of pace. The way that he closed up to the back of Swiderek very quickly indeed. But we see this so many times in every different category of racing. If you don't make that launch and make that attack quickly, you almost get suckered in to the pace of the car in front, don't you? You start to follow my leader, it kind of saps a little bit of your energy and your momentum, and then all of a sudden it becomes many degrees more difficult to make that move further down the road. And I do think that's happening a little bit for Finn Zimble at this moment in time. The dirty air's upsetting the car, he's kind of stuck. Oh, there we go, brakes almost look like he could have done. We've been a few metres earlier on that one, but he did get away with it. But for Zimble, I do think he's bogged down a little bit now for Swiderek ahead, and that's really denting this charge significantly for the German driver.
Yeah, it's just one moment can really, I mean, never mind Zimble, it can be a snowball effect, can't it, really? With one little mistake leads to a bit of red mist, you drive in anger, you try and make up for it, you then make another mistake, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And that's always circling back to the sort of mental aspect of a race like this. You know, you need to keep your head in the game, regardless what happens, whether it's other drivers' mistakes and contact, whether it's your own little mistake here and there, and regardless of the size of said mistake as well, you could just run a little bit deep, you could go a little bit later on the brakes trying to push too hard, or you could completely cut the chicane like Zimble did there. it can affect you so much. I mean, it's just, this is what you're chasing. The back of that Lamborghini Huracan Super Trofeo Evo 2, gorgeous looking and sounding machine, but you don't really want to be looking at the back of another one. You want to be in front of all of them, hoping they're looking at the back of your car. So Zimble pushing on like mad. God, ACC looks good at night, doesn't it? You said it before, Paul. It does look absolutely phenomenal. It's probably the most immersive sim when it comes to night racing. Easy.
Oh, well, I would agree wholeheartedly. It's a fabulous platform. Kudos to them. Well, that's the only, of course, developed this one. It's the official game of the SRO GT World Challenge, plus it's got many other add-ons, the American Track Pack, of course, and Intercontinental GT Challenge, British GT, you name it. The latest update for 24 came out not long ago as well, which is really nice. Looks great, but these cars, what I like the most about the sim, and it's perfectly topical because this is what we're racing in now, that they've done the other classes as well. It's not just GT3s. These Super Trofeo cars, they look to the untrained eye like a GT3 until you start getting down into the detail. But the way they drive, the skills and the driving styles that they require from the drivers are night and day difference. And from my personal opinion, are a whole host more fun and engaging to drive as well. And just like the real car, real drivers love the real Super Trofeo, and the esports side of things are also very popular as well, as Artur Rantard in 9th position gets very, very close indeed to Sonotti's rear.
Yeah, indeed. That's the thing. You have so many different braking zones on a circuit like this. You know, people really do send it into that first chicane. There's a few corners where we do see drivers take it a little bit safer and a little bit easier on the way in. Even here as well, up towards turn 4, there's so many drivers in the first opening couple of laps where we saw them almost properly like snow plow the car in front, because we've discussed it before that the front end of these Huracans is so low slung and so pointy down at the front. It's the perfect thing for something like Robot Wars. Don't know if everyone's heard of Robot Wars, but Paul and I definitely have. But the back end of the Lamborghini as well is really high up. It's almost the exact opposite shape because they've got these really chunky diffusers and they sort of hang upwards towards the rear of the car. The exhausts are mounted really high as well. So it fits very beautifully underneath, does the front end of the car. So if you want to just, you know, cheekily lift the rear wheels of the car in front off the ground and just pitch them into a spin, you very easily could do. But that's not what we're looking for here in the Real Race Super Trofeo Esports tonight. We're looking for clean and close racing, like we've had here between Magnani and Reinders. These two have been absolutely glued to each other. They'll be looking at wedding venues after this one, but helping each other on their way to a qualifying spot, and that's all they're going to care about right now, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely, playing the strategic game, although it does look a little bit like the tippy toes are starting to be stood upon for Janis Reinders. That car looks ever so slightly more pointed in its body language than we've seen up to this point. Reinders, of course, we realise that he's playing the strategic game and just building the gap. I think, Chaz, I'm going to go out on a limb here and think he's looked in his rear view mirror and thought, that's a good enough gap for me. Now's the time to pull that there pin and see what I can do about Magnani. And look how close he is now. This is an opportunity into the right-hander. Doesn't look, though, doesn't waste any energy, doesn't waste any momentum, just keeps following. But I reckon we are starting to get into a go position for an overtake, and I dare say Magnani will be well aware of that fact as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think he won't be ignoring the fact that he's all of a sudden right up, with Reinders right up behind him. That car will certainly not be getting any smaller anytime soon. Pozniakov still chasing, but 2 seconds back. They're at no threat of any slipstream or anything. A little bit of a slide there through turn 9 for Reinders. But he's still very much in shouting distance, isn't he, with Magnani? I think that this little bit of a breather that he's got here now down to the hairpin will certainly give him a bit more confidence. It's just difficult to keep an eye on the exact gap here because it looks one corner like Reinders has dropped away, and the next corner, the next braking zone, he's right with him again. It's like there's a bungee cord hanging off the back of Magnani's Lamborghini. I'm surprised it's not melted off with the exhaust being there by now. But yeah, he's right up against him again here. Look, into the final sector is where he's very, very strong. And then around the first sector as well, just in that middle part of the lap where it's a little bit higher speed. It's harder to follow, isn't it, with the dirty air washing off the back.
I do think, though, the little slide, I think it was T6, T7, something like that from Reinders, has kind of blunted the charge a little bit, and probably, maybe, just telegraphed a little message to Reinders as well, saying, how much risk do we want to apply? But he's certainly good on the anchors into T1. He's very nice through this section. They were almost as one on the previous lap, and immediately Janis Reinders has started to claw back that gap. If you're going to go in this scenario, as we've seen so many times in the past, either go or you don't go. Don't do the halfway measures, because any kind of squabbling is going to bring Pozniakov straight back into this conversation. So this has got to be, make it clear to Magnani ahead, I am not a threat, or get past and skittle away as quick as possible. And I do definitely think that Reinders is not as happy in 4th position as he was just 10 minutes ago, and this is going to be one to keep an eye on. Let's watch now as they both start to wind their way up the hill, Chaz, and this is going to be telling. Can Reinders stay close, or is he going to get dropped by the 3rd position car?
He's got a decent run out of turn 9, but
He's not close enough to really send it down the inside into the hairpin. I think that would be quite a high-risk place to do it. As Magnani goes a little bit deep into there now. Well, I'm not sure if this is going to pay into his favour, actually, for Reinders, because if you look, Pozniakov has now taken a couple of tenths out of them as well. I think he senses that something is going to be going on here, and he's switched it back on again. Maybe he was sort of sitting, waiting in the wings for something else to happen, whether these two got together and had a bit of an incident. Now he's seen that the gap is changing, and that potentially Reinders is having to think about making a move. Maybe not even just out of, you know, pushing to make an overtake. Maybe it'll just be a reaction. If he is that much quicker in the braking zone, he'll have to sort of dive out of the way of Magnani. We've seen it before. May very easily see it again.
Yeah, it does look like Magnani's starting to fall away a little bit from our lead duo at the front of the field. And of course, when you start dropping back, that one brings everybody into the equation behind. So Reinders, as you say, might be content in fourth, but I think he's starting to wonder if his hand is going to be forced a little bit, and he needs to do something before it becomes ever so slightly urgent with Pozniakov, Svidorek, Zimbal, Sonotti and co behind getting involved. And there we go again. This is the opportunity. The door is open. It would be rude not to walk through it, but we've got the outside line. Reinders is going to run out of racing room, so he does. Can he nip back to the inside? Yes, he can. A little bit of rubbing his racing, a little bit of a kiss and a head and shoulder, and the job is done. Janis Reinders, thank you very much. You leave a door open, you give me a gift, I'll unwrap it and eat that cake. Fabulous stuff.
That was brilliant, absolutely brilliant from Reinders, and very importantly now as well is he's already got a couple of car lengths over Magnani. It's not like Magnani's able to give an instant response to that. Reinders has been waiting so long for that to happen, I think. And as soon as that door was open, he flung himself headfirst through it. Didn't care if he took the hinges off on the way through. He's absolutely head-butted that door. And there you go. That's the result. He's got third place. He's got half a second over Magnani. And now Magnani, instead of looking forward at Reinders, he's going to be looking behind him because Pozniakov is just under 1.2 seconds behind him. So interesting. Very interesting indeed. We've also had word as well. Thank you to Ryan Gill, our producer, by the way, who is also turned tech guru at the same time, and let us know that Reinders is running higher wing than the car behind, so he's got less straight line speed, so that's why he's not been utilising the slipstream as much. He sort of needed the slipstream a bit more to keep him with him, as opposed to using it to overtake.
And that's why he's a little bit more comfortable and confident. Gets so close up to the rear of the number 10 of Magnani. Now, fascinating thing to work out over the next 5 minutes or so. Magnani looked to be going backwards a little bit in pace. With that fight and the overtake between Reinders and himself, he's now not a million miles away from striking distance for Pozniakov behind, and is in that fourth position, which is the final qualification spot. So this is big pressure for Lorenzo Magnani, and this is what's really interesting for Chaz and I, for you good people at home, and more importantly for Lamborghini management. How does a driver deal with pressure? Because pressure is one thing you can't avoid, Chaz. Doesn't matter what you drive, doesn't matter where you finish, there'll always be, for lesser or greater degrees, an element of pressure involved. And if Lorenzo Magnani cracks or excels, this next 25 minutes could be very important to his long-term career prospects indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, pressure isn't something that you can go into a race meeting and determine for yourself. It's not something you can control. It's one of those horrible sort of outside factors in motorsport that you just have to deal with. And, you know, these guys have all shown real sort of steely determination no matter what scenario they get thrown into. We've seen some drivers have to put up a hell of a defence before for those all-important positions that qualify you through to the next part of the series. And you know, it's like they're just driving around and they can't see the car behind them that's trying to make the move. You know, I don't know how they do it, Paul, because as soon as I get a car behind me, or I'm even like a second back, I just fall to bits and I crash. That's why I'm a commentator. I just cannot hack it at all, honestly. But it's one of those things. There are some drivers that are better at chasing as well. You know, they'll be quicker when there's a car in front, a target to chase, a physical target, as opposed to just chasing lap times and numbers. Again, that's me.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all the different strengths and assets that a driver has in their tool, their virtual armory, so to speak, the mental tools that they have to get out on the track and deliver the job they need to deliver. And they're all the kind of things that make the difference between good and great racing drivers. I don't care whether it's on a sim or on a racetrack, whether it's in a go-kart or a truck. It's all exactly the same thing. By the way, race control, an incident between car 13 and 6 on lap 10. 15-second time penalty. That's Zanolotti down in 12th position. He's been awarded 15 seconds to be applied to their race time for their troubles. So again, great work behind the scenes from our stewarding team as well. Looking at the fight now, in 8th and 9th position, Matteo Sinotti is currently the owner of position number 8 in this race. Car number 5, so he's had a suboptimal race compared to his hot stint, and he's got a lot of trouble on his hands because the French driver, Arthur Rontard, in car number 11, is climbing all over the back of that Lamborghini Huracan. And this has got the air of the when and not if, Messrs. Raycott, methinks.
I definitely think so too, and here comes the when, not the if.
Ooh.
Rontard down the inside. Ooh, runs him out of room on the exit. They head up the hill. He's still going to have the nose down the inside there, but is he going to give him the room to afford it? Still side by side on the exit of the corner. Somehow that magenta Lamborghini has kept itself down the inside, like a pair of afterburners heading off into the night there as they go into this god-awful chicane. Now we go back onto the brakes once more. Sorry, that fell out. Rontard still just in front. Can he get a decent run on the exit? Certainly looks like it. You've got to be really careful of that sausage curb on the outside because you can go Tony Hawk Pro Skater style and really grind along it with the bottom of these Lambos, or you can just about glance it with the left-hand wheels. But Rontard's got it all sorted out, and he has a decent car length or two now down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, that was a very nice bit of driving. Sinotti perhaps not quite on the pace that we expected him to be coming into this race. Matteo Sinotti, one of those drivers that we see banded around that name in various different championships, including this one over the years. Sinotti finished 10th, of course, at Imola for the opening race of the season, was 42nd in the hot lap competition for Red Bull Ring, so didn't quite make it through into the main show, and this is the final roll of the dice for that particular driver this year, but I dare say we'll see more of him again in the future. He's certainly shown himself to be competitive, even if the cards aren't quite falling his direction for this particular race. But somebody whose cards are falling very well indeed, falling all over the floor, some might say, is Andrei Pozniakov in 5th position, because lucky, what do we see? We see a gap, Chaz, that's reducing almost by the second, not for one car, but for two, because he's bringing Finn Zimble in as well for that fight for the last qualification spot. 21 minutes to do it. This one's got fireworks written all over it.
Absolutely does. I can't believe that we've almost done 40 minutes of racing already. You know, there have been some of these races where, we'll admit, some of them have been a bit of a slow burner sometimes as the drivers get into a rhythm and they figure out who's around them and who they can make moves on and how they need to approach certain phases of the race. Well, this one has absolutely flown by so far with only 21 minutes and change left on the clock. Max Lorenz, I'm sure, will be thinking this is a very long race and I want it to end now, please. Bonsignore is still closing in on him, actually. Just over 1.1 seconds the gap back, but they are well clear of Reinders and Magnani now after their battle. So those two will be feeling very confident, very safe. Of course, nobody's immune from mistakes. How many times, Paul, have we commentated on whether it be sim racing or real racing and seen someone from the lead spin out? You know, no one's immune. No one can get away with it. But it's these guys behind now that are going to provide the entertainment. I think Pozniakov on the back of Magnani. And Magnani, you have to say, it's a name we've seen a lot, and it'd be a real shame for him not to get through with how many stabs he's had at this.
Yep, absolutely. But I do think Pozniakov, as you say, he's in a very, very position now. 5th place, to quote Ron Dennis, is first of the losers. I hate that term because certainly there's no losers in this race, but he's the first of the drivers in 5th that will be going home with precisely nothing for their efforts. So Pozniakov, he could finish where he is, or he could throw it in the barrier. Same end result. Does not matter. You can only win in the scenario he finds himself. Magnani can only lose. He can only give away the qualifying spot. So all the pressure is on Magnani and all the opportunity resides in the hands of Pozniakov. So uninhibited by any kind of risk of throwing something away, I reckon car number 3 is going to be very hungry indeed to have a nibble at that position. And only a few moments behind is Marcin Sviderik as well, of course, and Finn Zimble not too far behind as well. So this could go very, very well or very, very poorly for Magnani in the next 19 minutes. Ain't going to be a lot of fun for car 10.
No, absolutely. I think that this is going to be a very, very big pinch point of the race. Now, just to circle back slightly, Paul, they don't technically come away with absolutely nothing. What they come away with is an hour of us northern cretins assessing their driving on YouTube. That's what they at least get as a minimum. That's a minimum prize here.
But what more could somebody want? What more could they want?
Us two. I mean, I'm going to say I'm a terrible sim racer. I've not actually raced against you. We need to do that at some point. But I'm not going to assess your skills here. But, you know,
we're...
could be a social media sensational viral video
yeah.
for 2025 season start.
Someone call Alessio. Right, we need to realise the fact that we are not professional sim racers, Paul and I. We are very much amateur, but love doing it. We know the mental strain that these drivers will be going through here. That's why we can comment so highly on it. We've seen it all, we've done it all, and well, I think this has been a brilliant, brilliant showing of just what these drivers have to put up with, because Pozniakov now is in a real strong place. He's done the hard work to close up to the back of Magnani, and Magnani now has to think about defending, and Pozniakov needs to start formulating a plan of how he's going to get through. The clock is ticking down, 18 and a quarter minutes left to go on that clock, and he's certainly going to be running out of time, because let's not forget, Paul, there's no more qualification races after this one once they lose.
Who wins the biggest prize that we can do, which is, of course, the seat in the Automobile Lamborghini Esports team. You've got precisely one chance in which to do that one, and that is this final remaining qualification opportunity. Pozniakov, that we still see on our screen, it's all got a little bit darker at this moment in time, but Pozniakov is stealth mode activated as he's looking to try and find that way past. And this is a lesson, by the way, to all you good people watching at home that maybe do a little bit of racing for yourself. At one point, car number 3 was about 3 seconds almost away from a qualification spot. He didn't give up, he didn't get frustrated, he didn't suddenly try to find 2 seconds a lap over his rivals. He just head down, pushed, worked, minimised mistakes, trying to do as much as possible to close that gap, and now look, he's in the seats where it could be entirely possible. Never ever give up. I say it a lot, it gets boring, but I cannot stress it enough. Even when all hope is lost, keep pushing, because you don't know what the end result's going to be. In motor racing, you don't even know what the checkered flag. Normally it's a couple of days after, but you've got to charge always.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it seemed like the organisers there just went, you know what, stuff this, let's turn all the lights off, and Magnani's the only one that's figured out where the switch is to put them back on. But not quite sure what that was. I think that's just a connection thing from what the drivers' cars are sending to our producers' sim at the moment. So I do apologise for that, everybody, but it's one of those things in sim racing. It's technology. We can't always rely on it. Still, Pozniakov...
That'll teach you, Chaz, for getting cocky, saying, I can see these cars easily in the night time. Much better. Well, let's make it harder for you.
Yeah, I think somebody somewhere's gone, what's this guy on about? Watch this. Flicks the switch and off it goes. But still, we have headlights on some cars, not on others. We still look at Pozniakov chasing down Magnani. Sviderek still very much in the picture as well. He's less than a second behind these guys right now in 6th place. Zimbol is then 6.5 seconds back, so he's going to need some major drama in these top few positions for him to gain a place. Look at the pops and bangs from the exhaust of these things. It looks excellent, doesn't it, as they head through the chicane once more. Headlights are coming on gradually here for Pozniakov. And now we just wait for Sviderek to decide to turn his lights on as well. Down the beautiful start-finish straight here at Circuit Barcelona, Catalunya. And down towards turn 1 once again. 25 laps in the books. It's still Max Lorenz that has the fastest lap of the race. And he's now reopened that gap at the front. Pozniakov has gone, Pozniakov, the racing line. And now loses a bunch of time to Magnani. That is going to give Sviderek a bit of hope now. He's going to close back in and say, potentially I'm going to get something out of this. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, Magnani will be absolutely delighted to see that gap move out. I do think Pozniakov has the pace to close that gap back down again, but we spoke about this earlier in the show, earlier in the race. Nobody upon nobody is immune to mistakes, and one small little error like that one, just a couple of metres past the braking zone, or maybe Magnani broke a little bit earlier than expected, he had to take avoiding action. That kind of mistake can be the difference between success and failure. Pozniakov is in a fortunate position that he did have a few tenths of a second advantage over Sviderek behind, so he's not under immediate pressure. But he's got to push now. He's got to push very hard indeed, put stress on the tyres, stress on himself, run the gauntlet, chance his luck a little bit more to close back up. And look how quickly he's done it, Chaz. That to me says this car has got carrier bags full of pace that he can deploy. He just needs to find a little park bench to sit on and start throwing that lap time around.
Yeah, definitely. He's certainly got the confidence to throw the thing forward and put in the laps when he really needs to. Just going to have to see now whether he can keep that consistency about him, because that's one of the other elements, isn't it? You know, you can put in a fast lap. We said this right at the top of the show. It's about how many times you can put in those fast laps and how you can keep the form going, because it's still very clear to me that Swiderek is closer to Pozniakov than Pozniakov is to Magnani. So you may feel a bit of pressure from behind. Some of the cars have their rain lights on, which I find quite interesting. Some of them are blinking away. You can see that on Swiderek's machine. Not quite sure if that's some sort of distraction tactic or something, but it's very clear now that Pozniakov is not staying with Magnani. That's a really, really weird turn of events, because for a couple of corners there, he was flinging himself forward, and now all of a sudden he's dropped off.
Yeah, I find myself a little bit confused about that one, whether he's sort of done some damage to the tyre in that late braking manoeuvre, whether he's sort of just got out of the zone, because that's something we talk about often, Chaz, in this championship and others that we've worked on together. You get into a zone, don't you? Ayrton Senna once described it at Monaco back in the 80s, as though you come out of the body and you see the car from above. And I don't know about yourself, but I've found it that when my horrendously mediocre driving, but when I'm in my personal zone, you almost don't recognise what you're doing. You don't think, brake here, accelerate there, turn here. It all comes second nature, and your brain goes away from thinking about the job in hand. And when you've made a mistake, you break out of that little trance almost, don't you? And then it's very difficult to get back in the swing of things. So could potentially be an issue. Pozniakov, as we make our way through a little bit of traffic, good driving to pull to the side of the circuit and not impede this what's fabulous squabble that we see on track. But Pozniakov has he's got to dig deep a little bit now, methinks, because time is a ticking for that fight for fourth.
Yeah, it really is, and this is the thing as well. That is possibly right now the most important position of those four, because that's the last one in the entire competition to get through. It looks like the front two are predetermined at the moment. I say predetermined, you know what I mean. They are already sorted. But Reinder's in third place. I don't know, he could make a mistake or two and fall back into these guys, so he's definitely not out of the woods yet. But I'd say Magnani is the one that needs to really keep his head right now. Pozniakov and Swiderek, they could end up battling amongst themselves, and I think Swiderek, it'll be clever of him not to have a go at Pozniakov. I think he needs to sit behind for a couple of laps. He can't really afford it, but I think he needs to, just to assess what he is doing in terms of the car in front, because Pozniakov could very suddenly, as we've seen, turn the pace around and fly up to the back of that black number 10 machine. He could not for a few laps, and then that's when Swiderek needs to make the decision to have a go.
And this is very interesting to see the different mentalities of drivers. See if Marcin Swiderek does deploy that racing logic. There's no point finishing fifth. Fifth is about as valuable as sixth, which is just as valuable as parking it in the barriers. It means precisely nothing. So Marcin Swiderek, it is so difficult when you see there's 11 minutes and 20 seconds on the clock, when you look through the car in front and you can see that wonderful, wonderful fourth place that you so desperately want, that all of your attention over the last month or so has envisaged, has done the positive thinking that you see yourself in that top four. It's very, very hard to play that patient game, but Marcin Swiderek is certainly needing to do that one now. Give it a couple of laps. Let's see if Pozniakov has the pace. If he doesn't, then it's your turn to pull the trigger and see what happens. But an unenviable position to find yourself in car number 4, I think, Chaz. And it's certainly something I think would absolutely break me like tearing wet paper being in that spot. There's no way I'd have the mental fortitude to play the game.
No, and especially with so much riding on it as well, that's the thing. The drivers will be repeating it to themselves of how important this will be, you know, even in just a sort of, I don't know, even in just like a private league or a little championship for a bit of fun in sim racing. You know, if you're in the lead of a race, it's still very nerve-wracking when it's such a big competition like this with so much on the line and a huge brand like Lamborghini behind it as well. There's got to be I can't imagine the amount of pressure. I really can't. I know that we spend a lot of these broadcasts saying about how difficult it is for the drivers to, you know, comprehend and what they've got to put up with, what they've got to think about, but I really can't imagine how pressurizing this environment actually is for them all. It's just incredible that they keep up the pace as well and they come here and perform, but that is why they're some of the best esports drivers in the world, and that's why they end up in teams like the Lamborghini Squadra Corsa team.
Exactly, and that's the thing, isn't it? Because you say about pressure, not making mistakes, but also not making mistakes is one aspect of it, and clean driving, etc., etc. But it's also, you stiffen up under pressure, you tense up, you tighten up, and you can't extract the pace. And let's make no absolute, let's be 1000% clear here. Because they're so in control of their cars, it looks relatively sedate what's happening, because they're not seesawing at the wheel, they're not throwing the car in sideways. These guys and gals that compete in these sort of competitions and I mean no offence to you audience at home, but for the likes of Chaz and I, and for the general driver, these are multiple seconds faster than we could ever wish to be in our one fastest lap that we've done. And they're doing it for 28 laps in a row against each other under all the pressure in the whole wide world. You and I, Chaz, could probably have all day on our own rigs with nothing, no pressure on, and not get within 2 seconds of the guys and gals that are racing in this one. The level is so high, and to deliver time after time after time, and the most stressful conditions you can imagine, it's nothing short of sensational, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, absolutely. It's just epic. It really is epic. And it's great that it comes down to the last sort of moments of the race like this as well, that we have a battle on our hands. We have seen a few before where the top 4 disappear over the horizon and they're never to be seen again until the next part of the competition. But in this race, there's always been a bit of a question mark over it. Will it be Reinders and Magnani that take 3rd and 4th? Will Pozniakov and Swiderek get up there as well? Will Zimbol stay with them? Unfortunately, Zimbol fell off a little bit in the later stages of the race, but again, that circles back to what we've said before. You have to look after the tyres, you have to look after the car for the whole thing. It could be that Zimbol was only able to stay up there in the early stage because he pushed so hard and he's just killed the tyres earlier than everybody else. You know, he hasn't had that bigger picture in mind because he maybe thought that everyone was going to do that same thing and push like mad at the start. He's unfortunately fallen by the wayside from then, and it's a big shame because he was so close to these guys and potentially in place to battle with them.
Yep, so here we go. This is a rarity. This is one for the collector's scrapbook. Max Florenz. Why have we not seen Max? Because he's dominated, it has to be said. Fastest in the hot stint pre-qualification, fastest in the qualifying prior to this race, got the start he needed, cleared off into the first corner, and yes, he's only 1.3 seconds ahead of Bonsignori behind, but I firmly believe that car number 1 is managing the pace at this moment in time. And Chaz, that's a skill in its own as well, because you're only racing yourself. For Max, all he can do now, if he wins, he's done what we expect him to do. He can only throw this away at this point. He's only racing himself, and you can kind of lull yourself into a false sense of security a little bit here, can't you? And it's very easy to throw off.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as soon as you have another car in your mirror, you'll be constantly assessing where they are. In a lot of the sims that these drivers use as well, you can get the information in the bottom right or bottom left of your screen, somewhere about anyway, that will tell you the gap from one car to the next, from you to everybody else. They call it your relative, basically. So you know what it is to the nearest tenth of a second. You can see if someone's gaining on you. Potentially, sometimes you see what their lap times are as well. You'll be comparing it to your own. These drivers do a hell of a lot of assessment on the move, a lot of live and active maths. I mean, I can't do that sitting still, to be honest, Paul, but to do that while driving, you know, you forget that there often isn't sort of 5-man teams behind each of these drivers managing the strategy and telling them what's going on elsewhere. Sometimes they will get a friend or a colleague in as what we call a spotter, which will say, you know, if there's a car trying to have a look down the inside or do this, do that, tell you other people's lap times. But they don't always have that, and they have to do a lot of assessment and a lot of thinking on the move rather than just muscle memory driving this car around the circuit. You know, there's so many things going on that we don't see from outside of the cockpit here.
Yeah, and that's why we love motor racing, real and virtual. It's a
Oh, yeah.
lot of, there's far more than sitting, steering, accelerating and braking. And look here, Andrei Pozniakov has decided, I am bored of having a gap. I've decided I'm going to have a little bit of a sniff at the exhaust fumes coming from our 4th position man, Magnani. And now, just like rewinding back 15 to 20 minutes or so ago, we are in a launch position for 4th place. So it ain't over till it's over. We've had a full season of qualification races. This is the 4th of them, and it comes down to who's going to get the last ticket to the grand finals, to the final 5 minutes of this race. And Andrei Pozniakov, he fancies that 4th position. Magnani, if we thought he was good at pressure management up to this point, well, we've just ramped it up to gas mark 10, methinks. This is not going to be an easy 5 minutes, Chaz, not at all.
No, definitely not. There's so much pressure now. There's a real curve of it building up into these final moments of the race. Only a couple more laps to go. Pozniakov could potentially use this lap and maybe one more just to assess where he is definitely quicker than Magnani, where he could put it down the inside on the brakes, where he quite could, I don't know, line up a bit of a run on corner exit, because that is often the better place in these sorts of cars. You don't want to send it down the inside and risk too much, because as we've seen, especially into turn 5, it's really easy to overdo it on the brakes, get into the ABS, and the car will just straight line and not give you what you want. Could potentially cause contact as well and compromise the pair of you. So It's often better to make sure you get a decent run out of the corner rather than a long, deep run into the corner. So it's either going to be at somewhere like this hairpin here where Pozniakov makes his move and sets it up, or he'll have a look. Well, okay, or that. But this is what I was on about. Look, he's gone too deep. He's actually lost time because here now comes Swiderek. He didn't need to do it there. It was well too risky to do that. I was just about to say he could do it down the start-finish straight or just try and set it up for the exit. He's thrown himself backwards there. I really didn't need to do that.
Yeah, that was a mistake, big time from Pozniakov. A little bit of pressure, a little bit of desperation almost creeping in. Saw an opportunity, but always, not all opportunities are even and equal, are they, Chaz? And sometimes, like you say, a clever driver, I'm not saying this is what's happened, but I've used this tactic before at drivers of a lower level than this. Open a door where you know they're going to make a mistake, invite them to go deep into the corner, and that's exactly what has happened. Maybe it's by luck or by deliberate stuff from Magnani, but the end result is that kind of charge has been blunted massively from Pozniakov. There's only 3 minutes left, ain't a lot of time to close back up and have another stab.
No, it's really not. It was almost like a bit of reverse psychology, wasn't it, from Magnani? Yeah. He sort of said, "Oh no, I've slipped," and threw at Pozniakov. He's like, "Oh no, there's a big wide open door here," and then he's gone have it on the exit, and he's just got past him again. But yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, he reacted very quickly as well. Hats off to Magnani, because even if he didn't mean it, as soon as Pozniakov put the car down the inside, Magnani jinked back to the right, gave him more space to make sure that if he did run wide, he was going to be able to get a cutback. And it was really good situational awareness that from Magnani. And if he gets through now as a result of that, then he can certainly pat himself on the back for that move in particular. That could have been race deciding for the pair of them. It could have knocked Pozniakov's confidence down a little bit. It could also have built Magnani's back up. Swiderek has dropped off a few more car lengths though, and I think that was maybe his final opportunity to get through here, unless Pozniakov does something a little bit more extravagant. But Swiderek, for me, he's not been urgent enough in taking those chances, has he?
No, Swiderek now, in the nicest way possible, is waiting for these two cars to go off track.
Yes.
That's his only opportunity, is let the other cars sort themselves out. But look how fast Pozniakov's closed back up again. So he really has got the bit between the teeth, and Lorenzo Magnani under a lot of pressure at this moment in time. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that was a deliberate move to try and put off Pozniakov before, and if so, great bit of driving. But I think he needs a few more tricks up his sleeve in this final minute and a half of racing. By the way, 10-second penalty for Artur Ramtard in 7th position, so that's going to drop him down a few positions come the checkered flag, but he's outside of this particular conversation because this is where the focus is on the final qualifying spot. And Chaz, it's always sad when you get to the end of a phase of a competition, but my oh my, have we had a great final knockout qualifying race so far.
Yeah, this has kept us on the edge of our seats all the way through, because it was never clear who was going to make it through, and it still isn't even now with a minute left on the clock. Pozniakov is moving around a lot more behind Magnani. Magnani's not really reflecting that too much. He's not throwing the car onto the inside line and parking it on the apex or anything. He's still going about his own business, and I think that is definitely the right thing to do. He cannot show Pozniakov that, even if he is, that he's rattled in any way. He cannot show any change in body language here to the car behind. He needs to just show that he's cool, calm and collected, and that he's getting the job done. Are we going to get a spare lap here? I think we are, aren't we?
I think it's very, very possible. Florenza's a few seconds up the road. There's still 26 to go, so yes, I do think we will make one final lap for sure. But Lorenzo Magnani, deeply impressive for me, Chaz. We talked about pressure, how they manage it. He looked to be struggling for pace in 3rd position. When he dropped to 4th, I thought he'd drop like a stone, but the way he soaked it up has been absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, and let's not forget as well, he was literally off at turn 1 at the very start of the race. You know, instantly he had a moment that could have rattled anybody, and it could have really knocked his confidence. It could have begun that snowball effect of driving with a bit of red mist and overdoing it and trying to recuperate. He's recuperated in a very different way here, and he's held his ground. He's really, really held his ground, and that's just as good as making moves forward. You know, is holding off other drivers at this sort of level. So I really, really agree with you there, Paul, that Magnani has been an absolute superstar. It'd be a huge shame for him not to go through, but at the same time, the persistence of Pozniakov has been brilliant too. He's had his little setbacks here and there, his own hurdles to overcome. He's tried to make a move. It was a little bit over the top, and he's paid the price for that. but he's still working hard here and trying to get back through. So both of them very deserving to go through with the 3 drivers ahead of them. It's just a case of finding out now which one it's actually going to be.
Yep, absolutely not over. This is the final lap of the 4th qualification and final qualification race of the 2024 The Real Race Super Trofeo Esports Series. You need to be in the top 4 to get a qualification ticket. Currently in the top 4 is Magnani. Lorenzo Magnani. He's held that position for a long time, but can Pozniakov do something about it in the final lap? He's running out of opportunities, Chaz. It is now or never.
I think we're going to see a very similar send here. You can see Magnani's moved the car over a little bit. Pozniakov actually wants to try and go around the outside, but Magnani's put the car in the perfect place, sticks it in the middle of the road, doesn't give him any options whatsoever. He doesn't cover just one of them off, he covers every possible option off. But I tell you what, Max Florenz has covered everything else off. He may have had Bonsignore close back in pull, but what a drive that is.
Absolutely superb stuff. For the final time in the qualification rounds, a car enters the start-finish straight, and it is, with flashing lights, Max Florenz from pole position to race victory. You will be going to the grand finals alongside him. Stefano Bonsignore in second place, seizing through to the fly. Janos Reinders will round out those podium positions, and then the fight of the race for 4th position. It is Lorenzo Magnani that takes the job from Pozniakov in 5th. Marcin Sviderik is our top 6, and we finish the qualification rounds for the Lamborghini Real Race Super Trofeo Esports Series in the best way possible, with an absolute cracking race at the darkness of Barcelona, and a worthy winner. Max Florenz takes the victory, and with it takes 1st place and the 1st qualifying spot for the grand finale. What a race, Chaz Draycott, that was.
I feel like I've just been flashbanged now. It's gone back into daylight. There's the sun coming around from the fantastic signboard there at Catalunya. But yeah, that was brilliant. A real spectacle start to finish. There was so much going on throughout the field. Great battles further down in the early stages as well. Everybody settled into a bit of a rhythm in the midpoint of the race. But that battle for the top 4 really kept us on our toes. And it was actually Magnani, even though it was him actually going backwards from where he started, because let's not forget, he started on the front row of the grid. He went back, I think, to what, 5th place, and then back up to 3rd, and then back to 4th, nearly to 5th again. And it was a hell of a story. And I think Magnani, I mean, I was going to say stole the show there, but I think he was the show for that race, and very deserving as well that at the end of that he gets a spot into the grand finale. So yeah, really, really impressed with that. I think the 4 drivers that we got there were all very deserving. Florenz and Bonsignore, they just showed ultimate consistency at the front of the field. They were barely separable all the way through. Reinders in 3rd place. He had to work to make it up to that position, and he earned that. And then Magnani's story was holding off all the drivers that attacked him through that. Very, very deserving 4 there. And it's a shame for the other drivers, of course, but they put on a hell of a show doing it.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Putting yourself in the shop window for the fans watching at home, for Lamborghini, of course, that's running this series, and for other teams that are looking for unsigned, talented drivers to take their next step in their own virtual racing career. And we say this so many times, and I mean it as well, especially in a race like today. Anybody who finished is a winner in this one. The level is so high, and Chaz, it's often a case when the stakes are so high that you see scrappy racing, mistakes, contact, a little bit greedy, we're trying to get positions. From what I could see, 99.9% of the time, that was very respectful, clean, fair, and hard racing throughout the field.
Yeah, I think greedy is definitely the right word. It's very easy to get carried away with how much is on the line here and make silly moves that aren't sort of characteristically what you would normally do. You know, you would sort of step outside of your comfort zone and push a bit too hard to try and make an impression. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And the level has gotten cleaner and cleaner every season. You know, there were a few incidents even last season where we both sort of went, ooh, not really a fan of that. But this season there's been none of that. We've not seen a single moment where we've both gone, you can't do that. You know, we've watched every race and thought, that's been so clean, so clean. It's very, very impressive. And they know more and more now how much I love the shop window analogy. That really does work, because that's exactly what this is. And they are more and more aware of it every single time we watch them. So yeah, very impressed with that. Really good, hard, clean racing though. That's the thing. It didn't deter from how hard the racing was. Nobody backed out and really took it too easy. They still made the moves that mattered, and they put on a hell of a show for us.
And I think that's what impressed me, especially Magnani's defence. You've already mentioned it as the cars were crossing the line, but the way that he clearly didn't have the pace in the second half of the race to contend for the top three, but he soaked up that pressure. And I think you mentioned it in late live as well. Wasn't defending fresh air, wasn't doing silly things, was just really, really clean. But I'll come back to that one in a minute, because speaking of someone who's not been doing silly things, we've got our race winner that we're going to have a quick chat to. So Max Lorenz is in our virtual commentary booth. He's going to come up on screen and we're going to have a quick chat. Max, you are the winner of the final qualification race of the year. How are you feeling? And tell me all about your race.
Finally qualified. I tried it 3 times. I should have been qualified at Spa, but I had only 40 liters in because I thought there's a pit stop.
Oh man.
Yeah, Red Bull Ring, the pace was not there, but this time it finally worked.
Well, you looked completely in control of this race. Fastest in the hot stint, fastest in qualifying, untroubled in the race. Was it as easy from your point of view as it appeared on screen?
It definitely wasn't. The whole race I was looking in the rear view mirror to see Bonsignore 1 second away, and yeah, that this will be a hat trick. Yeah, I didn't think that this would be this good.
So Chaz and I talk about pressure all the time in these competitions. Just try and give the audience at home a little feeling of how much pressure it is to compete in and win in something like this.
Yeah, I think you could see it in my last lap. I think my last lap was half a second slower than all the other laps. Yeah, but everything hurts, and I'm glad the 60 minutes are over.
And Max, more importantly than anything, and this will probably take a few days to sink in, but you are going to the grand final on site. Just tell me a little bit about how much it means to be racing for an opportunity to join the Automobili Lamborghini Esports team on site against your rivals that have gone through this competition.
Yeah, it's awesome to be there, but the best thing is that I have 2 teammates who are also qualified, who I can fly there with and have a nice weekend with in Spain.
It'll be a nice weekend if you beat them. If you don't beat them, it might be less nice.
Yeah, okay.
Well, Max, I think your performance today has been absolutely sensational. Really strong drive, clean pair of heels that you showed to the field, no mistakes we could see. And I cannot wait to meet you on site. So go and have a drink and a celebration, because you are the star of the day. Well done indeed. A brilliant drive.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks.
Fantastic stuff. Thank you very much, Max Lorenz, then, our race winner of the final qualification race of the Lamborghini Super Trofeo Esports Series. Real race. Not bad, Chaz, and seems relatively calm about his whole day's adventures.
Yeah, it was a very interesting interview, that, because you could tell he was very sort of calm and level about it, but at the same time he gave a very honest insight into how pressurizing it is and how difficult it may be. Like you said, on screen it looked easy. It looked like he just drove away at the front. The gap fluctuated a little bit to Bonsignore in second position, but at the same time he was still working really hard to maintain that, and it was a very, very well uniform drive from Max. Did a fantastic job there, and what a way to cap out this part of the competition, Paul. It's just been excellent. One of the best races we've ever seen, I'd say, in this. And you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that every car was battling every other car in the field, but it was the positions that mattered that were up for grabs. Can't even get my words out until the very final moments. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to recap then, ahead of the on-site grand final, at Imola, Luca Lozio, Luca Lome, Michael Romagnone and Just Parek qualified in the top 4. They're going to the grand final. We moved on to the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and it was Matias Tiskovic, Simone Seminara, Leonardo Passone and David Kolocai that got the top 4 positions and their qualification spot. Last time out at the Red Bull Ring, it was Andre Hipperhoff, Matthias Sampedre, David Nascadeville and Thomas Tasker that qualified. Of course, in this race, we've got our 4 qualifiers. We're also got a wild card from Mosa in China that's going to bring 3 wildcard drivers into the European final. we've got a grid. We've seen a little bit of what everybody's capable of delivering. I don't know about you, Chaz, but I most definitely wouldn't want to pick a winner out of any of those. It really, really could go absolutely any way at all, couldn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the best things about it is that we haven't seen all of these drivers on track together.
Yes.
You know, there's always one anomaly of some drivers that haven't raced against others as a different part of the competition. You know, some guys might not have been available for certain races, and that's the only reason. And relative pace, because we've gone from one circuit to the next, it's been impossible for us to say, oh, this guy's probably quicker than this guy, because we've not done all the races at the same circuit. So it's been really, really tough to try and pick a winner before now. I think for that grand final, it's going to be the most difficult job of all. So yeah, I don't think I'm not a betting man, and I don't think I'd want to be either when it came down to that.
And talking of circuits, there's going to be 3 races in the Grand Final. 2 30-minute races, 1 60-minute race. So it really is going to be testing the mettle of everybody involved. And speaking of everybody involved, it would be remiss of me not to say a massive thank you to everybody that's been watching, not just in this race, but throughout the course of the competition on the Lamborghini Squadra Corsa YouTube channel. It's been an absolute pleasure to have your company. And then everybody behind the scenes as well, of course. This evening, Ryan Gill has been our producer. We've also had Steve Proudly involved as well. We've got the stewarding team that makes sure that everybody is behaving, headed up by Fabio Frigo as well. Chaz in the commentary box alongside me, myself, Paul Jeffrey, calling the action. And then Mosa and AK Esports that make this thing possible. Every little facet, big or small, come together. And I think we've got a really enjoyable product that's kicked out 4 very enjoyable races, Chaz.
Yeah, definitely. It's been an absolute pleasure to be a part of this again, and we've seen great racing throughout. It's really, really been solid, and I just hope to see a very exciting finale from it all. I'm sure that's pretty much guaranteed, and I know that I, like many, will be really looking forward to it. But yeah, great team effort from everyone involved. It's been a joy to work on it, and a joy to work on it with you again, Paul, as well. It's always a laugh, and I look forward to the next time we work together as well.
Absolutely, and of course we've got the NALA Pack Region 5 as well upcoming. So the NALA will be at Watkins Glen October the 13th, APAC at Bathurst on October the 16th. So again, not just for Europe, it's a global reach of this particular programme. So really, really fabulous stuff. And as you say, Chaz, absolute pleasure to work together, and we'll be back very, very soon indeed. So I think it's time to say, well, no, it's not. Before I do that one, any final thoughts before we say goodbye, Mr. Dracos?
It's going to be so tough in that finale. It really is. We've seen high pressure environments before now. That grand final is just going to be bonkers. So make sure you tune in, everybody, because it's going to be epic. It really is. And Paul and I will do our very best to reflect how epic that is. But no, I've really enjoyed myself. I'm going to go for a birthday drink now, I think.
Yes, of course. By the way, everybody,
I had to mention it. That was so self-indulgent. I'm so sorry.
Still working. So everybody in the YouTube,
I had to enjoy it.
Everybody in the YouTube, give him a big up. Happy birthday to Mr. Chaz Draycott. But from myself, Paul Jeffrey, from birthday boy Chaz Draycott, and from the whole team at AK Esports, thank you for watching. And until next time, we'll see you then. Bye-bye.